Hey everybody, St. Brian from EatDrinkRoll here. Welcome to my lair. Recently, I have started to learn pixel art, and it's incredibly challenging, but it's also a lot of fun. I really enjoy the aesthetic, and I'm learning a lot, and there's still a lot that I do not know. But something that I do know from my technical drawing classes I had many, many years ago is how to get proper isometric angles so that way everything lines up properly. And that's what I wanted to share with you today. So I'm going to share with you how to do that. Now, I am using Photoshop Elements. It is entirely possible to do this with other programs. I'm just going to show you how I do it with this one. I'm going to start here with a new file, and I'm going to make this 500 pixels by 500 pixels to start. Now, you can make this as big or as small as you like, but I just feel like this is a good place to start. Now, we have a transparent background here. What I need to do is I need to give myself a white background, because otherwise, I'm going to move my video over here. I need a white background on this. Otherwise, I will not be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to add a solid color, and we're just going to make this white. Okay. And I'm going to create a new layer. And we're going to call this the ground floor, or the, we want to label everything. We're going to call this the ground floor lines. All right. Now, eventually, we're going to go in and color all of this in, or you can go in and color all this in. But what's important is to get the framework down first, so that way you know where everything goes, and that way everything lines up and looks proper. So what I want to do is I actually want to change my color here. I like light blue for some reason for my sketches. And I am going to start off with a line that's 1 pixel wide. Now, isometric drawings are at 30-degree angles. So the best way to do this that I found is to draw a straight line, okay? And now I'm going to rotate it. And I'm going to use the angle tool down here at the bottom, and I'm just going to set this to 30 degrees. Okay? Now, this would be one side of the house here. So we need to show where that corner is for the front and the side. So the easiest way that I found to do this, you could draw another straight line and angle it 30 degrees to the other direction, but I found the easiest thing to do here is to, if it'll let me, there we go, to duplicate the layer, and then come down here, turn off constrained proportions, and just change the width to negative, if it'll let me. There we go. Negative. So this gives me the angle on the opposite side here. And then when I bring these two together, boom, I have, if it'll let me actually grab the picture the way I want it to do it, it gives me the front and side bottom edges there. So now we need to draw the top here. We need to give it the other half. And we're not always going to see these lines once we're done the drawing, but you need to know where they are so you can line things up properly. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to I'm going to duplicate these layers. I'm going to do the same thing. Instead of constraining proportions, this time I'm going to reverse the height of them to be that. So now everything's laid out that's right in the right proportions. And what I can do is move this around. We're just going to do a simple house today, but we can move this around to make the house look any kind of dimension that we would like. Now, what I'm going to do in later tutorials is how to do more complex drawings, because now you're dealing with more intersecting lines and you have to work out where everything goes. So I am going to make it look like this. So that's going to be the base floor plan of the outer edges of our drawing here. Now, what I'm going to do to make this a little bit easier on us, I'm going to merge all of these layers together into one, merge shapes, okay? And then I'm going to come in with my eraser, and I'm going to get rid of all this extra stuff. If it will let me. Actually, let's do this. Because if you leave all these extra lines in here, it's going to get really, oh, and change your type to pencil when you go to erase. It'll make this go a lot faster. So I'm just going to, I want to get to that edge there. I want to make sure I've got a clean corner. There we go. And then I can use my select tool to get rid of the rest of that without interfering with that. Now we're going to do the other corner as well here. I could just do this. Hopefully that'll give me a nice clean edge. Yep. There we go. And you really want those corners. Those corners are going to be important. So we have that. Now that's the ground floor. We have that. Now we need to show how high, and we're going to basically show how high this is going to be. So we're going to duplicate this layer again, but this time I'm going to rename it. And we're going to call this top floor. I'm just going to call it lines. It's just so that way you know which lines you're dealing with. And all I'm going to do is, once I have this, I'm just going to move it up, straight up. You don't want this to slide over to where I want it to be, however high I want this to be. Now, this could be like a 1-story or a 2-story house. I think this is a 2-story house. I think this is going to be a 2-story house. So, and I'm actually going to move both of these down because I need a little bit more room for the roof. Okay, so now we have where the floor is and where the ceiling is. Great. Now we need to get the lines ready for the roof. And we're going to connect all this in a minute. Now, roofs, when you look at them, they generally, if they're built properly, don't come directly to the wall. The wall doesn't come up. They don't meet flush at the wall there, because otherwise what would happen? Just a simple design issue is that water would be able to get in the house. The purpose of a sloped roof is to make water move away from the house, over the shingles, and fall into a gutter, or at least fall off the side of the house. If they're flush, water gets into the house. So practical purposes, roofs have an overhang or an eave like that. So we can't just draw the roof and have it connect to these corners here, because then it would it wouldn't look right. And if we did the roof first, the problem then is everything that's sitting underneath it, maybe it doesn't line up quite properly, and the roof looks like it's fitting on there. It looks like it's just kind of like skewed on there. So we're going to do this the right way. We're going to take this one here and we're going to duplicate it, and we're going to call this now roof line. And I'm just going to make this, because I want this to be proportional on all sides the same way. So I'm just going to make this 110% of the original drawing here. And as you can see, that gives us a rectangle that are in the exact same proportions, but overhanging equal or relatively equally on all the sides here. This is going to make our roof line up properly. Now we do need to do one additional step here, or not, we have many more steps actually, but to get these planes all squared away, we need to know where the top of the roof is going to be. So we're going to duplicate this bigger roof plane, and we're going to extend that up as high as we want the roof to be. And I want the roof to be about this high. We're going to make this a pretty steep roof. Okay. So we have our planes of where everything lives. We have our ground floor. We have where the ceiling is, where the eaves of the bottom of the roof are, and where the top of the roof is. Now, the easiest thing to do when drawing an isometric building is to have it be a roof with 4 sides. We could do like a barn roof where it only has 2 sides. That has a little bit more going on to it, because we have some other lines that we need to consider in there. But we'll do that in another tutorial. This is just going to be another 4 roof, a 4-cornered roof here, or 4-sided roof. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to my line tool, and I'm going to work with my roof line copy. And I'm going to rename this roof peak. So again, it's really important that we have good layer management here. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit, because it's important I get these corners correct. And the first thing I'm going to do is we need to find the center of this, because that's going to determine where the roof is going to slope off. So we're going to go from this corner here to this corner here. And I'm going to have to zoom out a little bit. Or no, I don't need to zoom out. I can just do this. Ta-da! I can get rid of my extra steps I don't need at the moment. And I'm going to do this corner here to this corner here. Now, I'm going to merge these down into the roof peak. We're going to merge them down. I want to rename this again. Because what's going to happen is as we grow this drawing, there's going to be more and more layers in here, and you need to know what's connected to what so you can turn them on, turn them off, know what you're supposed to overdo. So now we're going to start adding some darker lines in here. Now, if I were going to be coloring this, I might start off by using some of the colors I want to use, but for this, I can always go over it. I can always create new layers. The first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to create the bottom lines here that are going to be more permanent. So I'm going to do a new layer, and this is going to be house bottom. Everything else, I'm just looking at like sketch lines. But for this, I'm not going to use the line. I'm going to actually use the pencil tool here. It is set to 1 pixel. Okay. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a little mark right on the corner there. And I'm going to come down to this corner, hold down the shift button. Boom. I've got my line. I'm going to hold down my shift button again as I click. Okay. Hold down my shift button again. And then one last time. Make sure everything lines up there. Boom. Now we have the bottom part of the house. Okay. Now we're going to do the same thing for the ceiling line. Okay. But for here, or excuse me, I'm going to take that back. I'm going to take back these 2 lines. I don't need these back 2 lines as part of the permanent drawing because you're not going to be able to see these. The roof is going to be covering them. There's other things that'll be in the way. So actually, I don't need to do them. So we're going to do the same thing here for the ceiling line. Okay, so I'm going to put a little dot there. Oh, no, see, that's off now. I can see it's not lining up with my line. So I need to get it a little bit lower there. It's a little tough to work. There we go. That's what I want. And I'm going to come to this corner. Okay. So now we have that. Now I'm going to give my lines. These are going to be the lines of the walls of the house. So you're going to see they're going to sit underneath the eaves of the house. So I'm going to come here and make my dot here. And I'm going to do shift, boom. And if I've done this correctly, it's going to be in an absolutely straight line. If it's not straight, it's important that the vertical lines are straight. The ones that represent the elevation lines that are going when we're seeing a difference in height, we need to make sure those are always going to be straight, because no matter what perspective you're looking at things like this, those lines are always straight. It's the ones that are showing width and depth, they're always going to be angled. We do the same thing here. Nope, that I hit the wrong button. That's what happens when you hit Control. So we're going to come back to this. We're going to do a line there, a dot here. Okay, straight line. And nope, I went too far over with that. Let's try that again. And come down to this guy right here. Boom, straight line. So now I've got the lines to the ceiling of my house. Now, I'm going to do the roof now. Now, here's the reason why I enclose the top. You will not be able to see them once this drawing is complete. But if I want to dye this and I want to put a color in here to make this work well, I need that. Otherwise, as we know, it bleeds all over the entire drawing. So I just did that ahead of time, so it's taken care of. Now, the roof line itself, this is entirely visible. So we need to do this entire rectangle here. So the same deal. I'm going to use my little dots that way. I want to make sure that my black lines are lining up perfectly with my blue sketch lines here. Otherwise, it might only be off by a couple of pixels, but you'll notice it as you do your drawing that, oh, wait a minute, the angles aren't quite right. They're not exactly right. You see, that one's off a little bit, so I want to redo that. I can see it was off by just a little bit, so I want to come out a little proud this time. There we go. Let's try it this way. Nope. We're having some troubles here, folks. I'm going to zoom in now to make this work a little bit better. And that's what working with pixel art like this, you do have a little bit of less of a tolerance. Ah, that's why. So we're actually going to come there. No. We'll clean up that. There we go. And we're going to just clean up that corner because that's going to bug me. Boop. Okay. So we have the roof line now. We're going to be able to see everything here. So here's how we make this four-sided roof. We're going to make all of the peak lines come from the corners up to the center of this plane right here. Now, if we were doing a two-sided roof, we would have to do some different plane lines on here, and that's fine. We can do that. Like I said, we'll do a different tutorial with that. But I'm going to zoom in again here, and I'm going to use this pencil tool. You could also, actually, you could use the line tool in this, but I just happen to like using the pencil tool. So I'm going to come right here, bang. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to create a new layer is what I'm actually going to do. And we're going to call this roof peak. All right. I don't want to erase. I want this. I want my pencil tool. I'm going to come right here to the middle, and I'm going to draw my first line right to this corner here. Helps if I hit the right button, doesn't it? Let's try this again. Oh, there we go. We got that. We can always clean it up later. Boom. There's our first line. Back to our center point. And we're going to go to the next line. Boom. And again, I'm going to clean all of this up. This is just, we're getting a little bit more detailed with our sketch now. So here to here, and here to here. All right. Now, I'm going to turn off all of our sketch lines now. Let's turn all of these off here. All right. As you can see, we have what looks to be a pretty good three-dimensional representation of this roof. Now, what we're going to do here, and I'll show you, this is why it looks a little off now because we just have like this wire form. You need to decide which way the sun is coming from on this as well. I think the aesthetic of having the sun come kind of from the upper or coming from the right-hand side is going to create the best look here, or maybe down. So what we're going to do, a few different, where are my browns here? Give me 1 second. View. I'm going to bring up my color swatches here. Okay. So I've got a few different colors here. These are actually my tree colors. It overwrote what I wanted to do, but that's fine. We're going to start here. We're going to use just 4 colors here. We're going to use, this is our first one. We're going to color, oh, boom. Okay, so we've got a hole somewhere. Let's see. What's going on here? Roof peak. House bottom. I think I see what happened here. So I think my lines for the rest of the roof are in a different layer. See, this is why layer management is important. We can learn from our mistakes. So I'm going to make sure I'm in the roof peak. So that way everything's where I want it to be. And I'm going to use my pencil tool here again. Oh, actually that's fine. We're going to overcolor this. You know, I'm just going to make a new layer. That's what we're going to do. New layer. Roof. No, we're not. I'm not going to do that. I want to do this in the roof peak here. Never mind. Sorry, this is just me thinking out loud. Still a learning process for me. All right, so we've got one line. Move this out of the way here. 2 lines. Oh, you know, I'm going to back this up. Let's do this again. I want this in black. Now, what I would do, and like I said, there's some great tutorials out there, and I'll put a link for one of them that I used down into the description below for how to make some really nice looking roofs. This is basically where I learned how to do this. I learned how to do the coloring. The isometric part, like I said, I learned how to do this in high school through my technical drawing classes with Mr. Pullen, who was awesome. It was one of my favorite classes in high school. I was on the swim team with his daughter, and his daughter she was cool. All right. So now that I have this, but like I said, I'll put those links in there. Now, we're going to come back to this. I am going to make this the brightest. Oop. You want to know what I didn't do? I didn't connect everything at the top. Somehow I messed this up. So let's try this again. Boom. Nope. Shoot, Brian. Thank God for undo, right? So we're going to do here to there, back down to here. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to connect this to this to this. All right. Now, in theory, all right, we have our roof. Good, good. Now, we're going to dye the roof, or we're going to paint the roof here. So we're going to come back to here. We're going to paint that. That's the brightest side. Now we're going to go a little darker. That'll be on a more darker side. This is going to be more in the shade, and then the one that's going to be really in the shade is back here. Now, what I would do, according to the tutorial, again, I'll put the description down in the, I'll put the link in the description, is I would actually not use black lines. I would actually use the color. I would have the color of the roof here. It'll look a lot better once you do that. But as you can see, you're starting to get some idea of the dimension of this house, of how it looks. But the thing is by doing it in this manner, by using the frame as I showed you, everything's going to line up properly. All the lines are going to be exactly where they need to be. Nothing's going to look askew. It's all going to be exactly as it should be. Now, in future tutorials, I'll show you how to do the barn roof, the two-sided roof, and I'll also show you how to do some intersecting features on it if we want to do more complicated things. My hope is that once I get my computer built, I will be able to actually live stream this so you can see my journey as I'm learning how to do pixel art, but also I can share with you what I know about the geometric part of it, which is something that I am aware of. But I am very thankful that you are watching this video. So thanks for joining me. If you like what it is that we do here with Eat, Drink, Roll, please subscribe to the YouTube and Twitch channels and consider backing us on Patreon. The links are all down in the description. You can back us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month, and we can continue to make content like this. So thank you very much for joining me.